What is going on YouTube, and welcome back to another Galaxy of Heroes video with your bald-headed boy Scribble. Today we're going to be talking about the Cal and Cere mission on Bracca and how best to mod and go about getting those dubs, because we all want access to Zeffo. It's really the best and most effective way to get the benefits out of this new Rise of the Empire TB. Let's break this down, shall we? Now, when I first started doing this mission, I was having no end of trouble because, well, at first I had the OG Cal, now I've got Jedi Knight Cal, and it makes all of the difference in the world. However, I still had a little bit of problems with the modding in the first time round, going for something that was probably not optimal. And once I changed up the modding on both Cere and Cal to be a little bit faster and more potent, and Cere to be a lot faster and focus more on defense, I had a lot more luck and success. In fact, it was quite effortless. And the most important thing about this is that it's so easy with this particular setup and this approach that you don't even need to worry about throwing any Omicrons on Cal Kestis. Now, don't let that stop you. Don't let that stop you for 1 minute from thinking about applying some Omicrons to him. If you are particularly engaged in Rise of the Empire TB, those Omicrons are actually incredibly powerful on him. You just won't catch me doing them because, well, I can't use TB Omicrons in GAC. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the modding. We're going to focus first and foremost on our girl Cere. You can see she's here, Relic 7 double Zated Cere. Now, I've gone for 2 sets of defense mod sets and 1 set of health mod sets. Honestly, if I could make this mod set work with a full set of defense sets, I would absolutely go for that because I feel like the defense values are more valuable than overall health. I say that with a couple of caveats though. Generally speaking, with this Cere, I want her somewhere between 250 to 270 speed, and I want her to have at least 84,000 health. If I can hit those metrics, the only other thing that I really care about is trying to make her healthy and as defensive as possible. So try and pump up that armor as much as you possibly can, in my experience. You don't want her being slow, because the more turns you take, the better off you'll be, the more survivable your team will be, and honestly, that's the main caveat for this team winning. You want to be able to recover, you want to be able to put out damage as quickly as possible. So taking a look at Jedi Knight Cal then. Over here, I have gone for a little bit of a different setup here. You can see that I've got some health sets and I've got a potency set. The reason I'm using that is I don't actually care about his offensive output at all. There are so few enemies in these waves, and you're going to insta-kill one of them each wave, that he doesn't need to be powerful. What he needs to be is relatively fast, and he needs to be survivable, and I like potency on him. And let me tell you why. So this is my Jedi Knight Cal. Now, this is not the mod set that I have on him for that Cere mission. I have its own dedicated mod setup, but the reason we want to take a look and modify his potency to be particularly high is because of this. Head over to Whirlwind Slam, and you can see down here that this does actually apply a number of debuffs. Deal physical damage and inflict speed down for 2 turns on all enemies. That's quite useful. Notice that none of these say these effects are unresistible. You will definitely have to pass a potency tenacity check there, so the more potency the better. But that's not the only debuffs. You can also stun the target enemy for 1 turn and inflict them with armor shred, and you can daze all enemies for 2 turns. Now, being able to stun the enemies really decreases their ability to put out damage, and their damage output is quite significant. So I find potency to be particularly useful, but it's not just for this Whirlwind Slam. If you take a look at his Impetuous Assault, and that's the crossguard stance ability that will insta-kill, that also has a number of rather useful debuffs to apply. Inflict the target enemy with ability block and stagger for 1 turn. Granted, that's not important so much because generally speaking, the first time you use it, you're going to insta-kill the target. However, the second half of this sentence, you get to inflict all enemies with Force Influence for 4 turns. That is a long-term debuff. Now, if you need reminding about what Force Influence is, we just have to take a merry jaunt over to Kyle Katarn's kit, because this is where the first instance of this particular debuff was seen in the game. Jedi Knight Cal is only the second, I believe. Force Influence. Can't assist, can't counterattack, or gain buffs. It's all very useful things. We'll stop the enemy from being able to get that crit hit immunity, that defense up, that taunt, all that annoying jazz. I like to have potency on Cal for this, okay? It's nice to have force influence out there. It's very nice to be able to stun, to daze, to stagger. All this good business helps you control the field because that way you survive. It's not about trying to kill them outright with damage. It's about trying to control the enemy team, in my opinion. So jumping back over to Cal Kestis's stats here, let's have a quick overview. Again, I've gone with health sets and 1 potency set. That's because I want to try and push this potency pretty high. I think if you can get over 90% potency, you're in pretty good standing. I've got just under 300 speed. I think 300 speed is probably a little bit overkill, but generally speaking, when I go for these mod sets, I try to set a range and max out as high as I possibly can. So 110k health, I imagine you'd be okay with about 100k, 300 speed essentially, and about 90% potency. If you can hit those metrics, I think you are going to be in great standing. Now granted, my Jedi Knight Cal over here does have the triple Zetas and he's Relic 8, so you'll have to adjust your stats accordingly if you are at Relic 7, for example. If you're Relic 9, it's obviously going to be a little bit easier, but you can see here I have no Omicrons. Let's go start the video then. So, the first wave, you've got 2 Purge Troopers which look phenomenal. I'm starting off with the turn meter swap with the double-bladed stance, the twin blade stance, sorry, to Cere, and then I'm going to use the event special ability to clear the taunt off of the IPD. After this, we use a basic with Cal, and then go into the Saber Staff stance, and we stun him and speed down. Isn't that fantastic? Now I'm using the first special from Cere just to gain a bit of bonus protection, and you're just swapping back and forth with Cal's abilities to try and max out his impetuous stacks at 30 as soon as possible. Now he always dispels on a basic, so do that and use your crossguard on whichever Purge Trooper you haven't been attacking. That leaves you with just 1 more Purge Trooper left on the field, completely ignoring the Imperial Probe Droid, and just bounce back and forth. The key part here, ladies and gentle beings of the tribe, is that you want to be visited by a small cat named Smudge. No, you do not want to, well, you probably do actually, let's be honest. What you don't want to have happen is finishing off this phase in the Twin Saber stance. You want to be able to have that available to you as soon as you go round into the next wave, okay? So make sure that you are not in the Twin Saber stance as you finish up here. So you can see here the Purge Trooper is getting a little bit squishy. I pass the turn back over to Cere. Obviously she doesn't actually take that bonus turn, and then we just use our basic and go back into the Saber Staff stance. We want to try and save Cere's first special going into Wave 2 if at all possible. And Wave 2 is where the crux of the entire phase is. We want to try and insta-kill Second Sister as soon as possible. So we're going to use the turn meter swap, we're going to pass it over with the Twin Saber stance, then we're immediately going to cleanse off the Imperial Probe Droid's taunt, get rid of that completely, and just focus on swapping between stances. Check that out, we've got the speed down across the board. This is why potency, I feel, is highly valuable, guys. Okay, swapping stances once again. Try and get to that 30 stacks of impetuous as soon as possible, and then you're just going to absolutely annihilate Second Sister or Triller right out the gate. Don't worry if Purge Trooper taunts, you dispel all the time. Boom, she's gone. We have got that Force Influence debuff applied to both the enemy characters, which is super, means no buffs for them. Fantastic, now you don't have to worry. It's a plain sailing from here, guys. Just hit auto and you will get that additional victory and bring yourself and your guild one step closer to unlocking Zeffo, which hopefully we'll be able to do very, very shortly. And hopefully so will you too. That's going to about do it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to bother showing you the rest of that video because it is very straightforward. You just keep on using those abilities until you clear out the field. I hope it was useful to you. Make sure you guys go to the comment section down below. Let me know, did this guide help you? Was the modding useful? And were you successful in your special mission on Bracca to get through to Zeffo? While you're there, guys, just like the video for me, add a comment down below just so the algorithm can help push my videos out and my bald head can blind more of the swugger holotables. I thank you for it. Peace out, and may the Force be with you.